Good evening, and welcome to News Channel Name. Our top story tonight. The United States has launched an extensive series of retaliatory strikes against over 70 ISIS targets in Syria following the tragic deaths of 3 Americans in a recent attack. The deadly incident, which occurred near Palmyra, Syria, claimed the lives of 2 U.S. soldiers and a civilian contractor, sparking an immediate and decisive response from the U.S. military. Officials have described the initial attack as highly coordinated, carried out by armed elements with links to the Islamic State. U.S. authorities have emphasized that the assault was deliberate, targeting American personnel who were engaged in ongoing stabilization and counterterrorism operations in central Syria. The loss of these Americans has reverberated across Washington and prompted calls for a swift and strong military response. In response, the U.S. military conducted a series of precision strikes beginning in the early hours of Thursday morning. The operation, which involved fighter jets, attack helicopters, and long-range artillery support, targeted more than 70 locations tied to ISIS operations. These targets included weapons depots, command centers, training camps, and logistical hubs. Officials emphasized that the strikes were designed to degrade the operational capabilities of ISIS while minimizing the risk to civilian populations in the area. The operation also saw cooperation from regional partners, notably Jordan, whose Air Force assisted in the air campaign. This marked a significant example of regional collaboration in counterterrorism efforts and underscored the importance of allied coordination in responding to threats that cross national borders. U.S. Central Command officials noted that the planning for these strikes incorporated the latest intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities, ensuring that targets were accurately identified and engaged. President Donald Trump addressed the nation following the operation, calling it a measured but firm response to the attack on U.S. personnel. He stated that the United States would not tolerate attacks on its citizens or soldiers abroad and vowed to continue taking decisive action against those responsible. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth further reinforced the administration's position, describing the strikes as a demonstration of both U.S. military capability and commitment to protecting American lives. Eyewitness reports from Syria indicate that several of the targeted sites suffered significant damage, with multiple ISIS fighters reportedly neutralized in the attacks. While early assessments confirm that at least 5 high-value targets were eliminated, military officials caution that ISIS remains active in pockets across Syria and Iraq, requiring sustained operations to fully neutralize the threat. Analysts note that such retaliatory strikes serve multiple purposes. Not only do they directly impact the capabilities of extremist groups, but they also act as a strong deterrent against future attacks on American personnel and interests abroad. The broader strategic implications of the strikes are also notable. Syria remains a highly complex theater of conflict, with multiple factions vying for influence following years of civil war. The presence of foreign actors, including Russia, Iran, and various militias, adds layers of complexity to military operations. U.S. officials have emphasized that all efforts were undertaken with an awareness of these dynamics and with the goal of limiting unintended escalation. From a tactical standpoint, the strikes employed precision-guided munitions, real-time intelligence sharing, and unmanned aerial surveillance to ensure that the most critical ISIS infrastructure was targeted while civilian harm was minimized. Military analysts highlight that this approach reflects lessons learned from previous engagements in Syria and Iraq, where intelligence-driven operations proved essential in achieving objectives without causing widespread collateral damage. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a monitoring group that tracks developments on the ground, reported that at least 5 ISIS operatives were killed in the operation, with additional fighters and facilities damaged. While these numbers are preliminary, They provide insight into the immediate effectiveness of the strikes and underscore the intensity of the military response. Regional reactions have varied. Jordan praised the operation as a critical step in combating terrorism, citing the shared responsibility of neighboring nations to address extremist threats. Meanwhile, the transitional Syrian government, which holds limited authority in central regions, publicly acknowledged the strikes as part of ongoing coalition efforts to counteract terrorist activity. Despite complex political dynamics, the operation appears to have achieved a degree of cooperation that reflects the shared threat posed by ISIS and affiliated groups. Intelligence sources indicate that the recent attack on U.S. personnel involved detailed planning and possibly insider knowledge. This highlights the continuing challenges faced by American forces operating in volatile regions and the importance of robust security measures. Analysts emphasize that ensuring the safety of troops, civilian contractors, and local allies requires constant vigilance and adaptive strategies to counter evolving threats. From a strategic perspective, the retaliatory strikes convey several messages. Firstly, they demonstrate that attacks on U.S. personnel will be met with decisive consequences. Secondly, they affirm America's commitment to regional allies and partners engaged in the fight against terrorism. Thirdly, they underscore the broader strategy of degrading ISIS capabilities before they can execute further attacks. Military experts note that such actions are essential not only for immediate security, but also for signaling resolve and capability to both allies and adversaries in the region. In addition to immediate military objectives, officials are mindful of the political and diplomatic ramifications. U.S. strikes in Syria are carefully weighed against potential escalation and international law considerations. Maintaining transparency with domestic and international audiences is also a priority, with regular briefings from Pentagon officials and updates to Congress to ensure accountability and clarity of purpose. The human impact of these operations is also significant. The loss of American lives has been deeply felt across military communities, families, and the nation at large. Memorials and statements honoring the fallen emphasize the sacrifices made by those serving in challenging and dangerous environments. The retaliatory strikes, while a response to violence, also reflect the nation's commitment to ensuring that such sacrifices are acknowledged and avenged in a calculated, strategic manner. Looking ahead, U.S. military and intelligence officials have indicated that additional operations may be necessary to fully disrupt ISIS networks. This could include further airstrikes, targeted raids, and sustained intelligence-gathering efforts in coordination with local and regional partners. Analysts stress that while the immediate strikes represent a strong response, long-term success requires continuous engagement, careful planning, and adaptability in the face of shifting threats. The strikes also highlight the evolving nature of U.S. military strategy in the region. By leveraging precision strikes, intelligence assets, and regional partnerships, the United States aims to maintain pressure on extremist groups while limiting risks to both civilians and its own personnel. This approach represents a balance between immediate tactical gains and broader strategic goals, including stability, deterrence, and coalition building. Internationally, the strikes have prompted responses from allies and observers. NATO members and regional powers have largely expressed support, recognizing the necessity of counterterrorism measures while urging careful consideration of civilian safety. Humanitarian organizations, meanwhile, stress the importance of monitoring for unintended consequences and ensuring that affected populations receive support and protection. The strikes also underscore the broader challenges of counterterrorism in Syria. The region remains fragmented, with competing factions, foreign interventions, and ongoing humanitarian crises. Efforts to dismantle ISIS must navigate these complexities while addressing the root causes of extremism, including political instability, economic deprivation, and social grievances. Analysts argue that military action alone cannot achieve lasting stability, and that coordinated diplomatic and development strategies are essential. Security experts have noted that the retaliatory strikes also serve as a deterrent, signaling to both regional and global actors that attacks on American citizens and forces will prompt decisive responses. Such messaging is crucial for maintaining credibility and protecting not only personnel, but also broader strategic interests in volatile regions. The strikes have been accompanied by an increase in surveillance and reconnaissance activities in the region, designed to monitor any potential retaliatory attacks or movement by extremist groups. This proactive approach reflects a comprehensive strategy, integrating air power, intelligence, and regional cooperation to achieve operational objectives. Finally, the strikes represent a significant moment in the ongoing fight against ISIS and affiliated extremist organizations. They demonstrate the United States' willingness to act decisively in response to attacks on its personnel while highlighting the challenges inherent in operating in complex conflict zones. The effectiveness of the strikes will continue to be assessed over the coming weeks as intelligence is gathered and regional developments unfold. In conclusion, the U.S. retaliatory strikes against over 70 ISIS targets in Syria following the deaths of 3 Americans mark a major escalation in ongoing counterterrorism operations. While achieving immediate tactical objectives, the operation also carries broader strategic, diplomatic, and political implications. As the situation develops, the U.S. remains committed to protecting its citizens, working with regional partners, and pursuing a sustained strategy to neutralize extremist threats. This concludes our in-depth coverage of the U.S. military's response in Syria. Stay with News Channel Name for continued updates, expert analysis, and detailed reports on this evolving story.